The Southampton Arts Center's mission is building community through the arts. We have been here for the community, and we hope that you, the community, will consider supporting us by becoming a member, subscribing to our email list, and following us on our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram. It is now my pleasure to introduce my friend, the founder and executive director of Hamptons Doc Fest, Jackie LaFaro. Thank you. Thank you, Christina, and thanks for all the teamwork of the Southampton Arts Center. And thank you all for coming to celebrate Mother Earth. We saw it just a few weeks ago, right, in a new light, and from afar, from the moon. And so we plan to bring you it closer with DOCS EQUINOX as we celebrate wildlife. Carl, who we claim as one of our own, is a renowned science and nature author whose nonfiction writing fuses scientific understanding, emotional connection, and a moral call to action. His writing has won a MacArthur Genius Prize, a Pew, Guggenheim, and National Science Foundation Fellowship. He is the founding president of the Safina Center and now the first endowed professor for nature and humanity at Stony Brook University. Please welcome Carl Safina.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's really always great to be here in this wonderful place with this fantastic community. Okay, so this is all about the human connection with the natural world, right? And we're going to see this tonight, my take on it, through the lens of this creature and what she helped to teach me about connecting. In 2018, I got a call from a wildlife rehabber, a text message actually, with this photograph saying, "Do you know what kind of bird this is?" And I said, "Well, I think it's a dead bird, but what's going on?" And she said, "Well, it was found on somebody's lawn, just about dead, covered with fly eggs. I've cleaned it up. We call it it. That's something wrong with our language. We refer to living things as it. And I don't know what to do with it." So I said, "Well, I do know what to do with it. So why don't you bring it over?" And together, over the course of a few days, she really perked up. And we decided, we didn't know the sex, but we decided we're going to call them she. So by default, this became she, and her name became Alfie, which is short for alfalfa because she's a little rascal. She started to really thrive, and we started to get quite fond of her, as you could imagine. She joined in all our reindeer games. This is me and my daughter after a morning of clamming, with Alfie there, with our dog Jude looking at Alfie. Now, you probably can't see that there's a big problem in this photograph, but there it is. She had a very severe developmental delay, probably because she just about starved and died from dehydration. So her feathers were not coming in, and when her brain told her it was time to fly, she couldn't fly. She could only flop around. So one night of flopping around the backyard would have been her last, because there are loose cats, there are raccoons, there are great horned owls. So we had a bit of a dilemma. And I held her. Was not the first plan. That was not plan A. By autumn, she molted. And I needed to see if she could grow those feathers and molt them normally. So I continued to hold her, but as you can see, she's just a knockout debutante here. Just perfect. And then she did molt properly, and she could fly, and in the spring I got her ready for release. I had a hard time with release because she was safe and very comfortable in our chicken coop, but that's not where she belonged. That's not the way the world was made for her. So, life comes with risks. Freedom is dangerous, and I had to face that. We left the door open one night, and the next morning, there were a bunch of her feathers outside our back door. And I could not believe that after all these months of this owl that I was totally in love with, that she got killed the first night she was out. And then I thought, wait a second, I don't have a carcass here. Something happened, but I don't know if she's dead. So we continued putting food out for a week. It stayed there every day. Nobody came to eat it. And then I had to go on a trip. I had to go to a conference in Portugal. And at 4 a.m. when I was in Portugal, my wife sent me a text, and the text said, "Guess who's back?" She came back. She decided that our home would be her territory, our backyard, and needless to say, I was thrilled, and needless to say, we were both delighted to be reunited. There's a song there somewhere. This is a real picture. I do not have a dead mouse in my mouth. I literally just turned to her with my lips pursed for a kiss, and she kissed me on the lips. So we were in love, but then we had another problem, which was a love triangle. And this was really quite thrilling, as you might imagine, that our owl attracted a suitor. We still weren't sure if she was really female, but we were calling her she. And now they tell you in school that birds have no emotions, and they also have no expression of any emotions because they don't have any emotions. But you can see very clearly here that that's her mate, who we called +1 on the left there. And he is thinking, and his thinking is, go away. I'm really sick of seeing you. And she is thinking, this is great. I'm in between my two favorite, most trusted beings on the whole planet. Now, when they first got together, she was not into it. There was a lot of chasing back and forth. She did not want to sit next to him on a branch. And over the course of a couple of weeks, what I saw was not mating behavior. I didn't see ritual displays. I saw the development of trust and a pair bond. And that was really amazing and really instructive because, who gets to watch wild owls, one of which is completely tame, to see in detail how they conduct and develop their lives? So it was an extraordinary opportunity. And then, of course, one thing leads to another. We all remember this. And I got to see finally that, yes, Alfie actually was the female. So I put up a nest box right on the outside of my writing room, on my studio there. That's my wife looking for her mate. Not looking for her mate. I'm her mate. She's looking for Alfie's mate, +1, in the trees. Now, after a little while, Alfie was being kind of quiet, and she was staying in the nest box, and I thought, well, she probably has eggs. And although she is tame and she knows me, I didn't know how she would react if I put a ladder up and actually went snooping around. I was afraid she might be frightened or defensive. I was afraid she might get scared and bolt and break eggs if there were eggs in there. So I didn't do anything. I just was wondering. But I realized that every night around sundown, she was coming out and she was going to the bird bath. And that gave me a few minutes because she would take a drink, take a bath, shake off, do a spin cycle. And that gave me a chance to get up on a ladder and stick my phone in there and see that, in fact, she had eggs. This miracle. Now, every single bird you've ever seen has hatched from an egg, but most of us never get to see this. And all of us know somehow intuitively that this is a super special thing and really kind of miraculous, which I'll even talk about a little bit more in a little while. Eventually, the eggs hatched. When I thought the eggs might be hatching, I was going to shine a light through to see how developed they were, but the first one I picked up started talking to me. And you probably don't know this, but when birds are hatching, I didn't realize it was hatching. It didn't have a hole yet. It just had a crack. And I didn't see that until after I heard the chick. And I ran my thumb over it, and it's like, wow, the egg is chipped, and the chick is hatching. And they start to talk to their parents right away, before they're out of the egg. And this begins to cement a new kind of a pair bond. And it's really, I mean, the hair on my arms went up, because with that first little seepage of air, this little owl chick joined a conversation that they've been having for about 30 million years. And it was very touching and very moving. To show you how very tiny screech owl babies are, that's all three of them compared to a white-footed mouse that their father had delivered. So you saw Jane's with the screech owl here tonight. You know they're little, but when they're just hatched, they're really little. And their parents immediately went into parenting mode. And some people told me, you know, you've ruined this owl because she's tame. She won't know she's an owl. You did everything wrong. And none of that was true. She responds to me because she knows me, and she responds to her mate because she's an owl. And they went into parenting mode right away. They brought back a whole bunch of different stuff. They're not very picky. This one, I'm not sure who that is with a moth, but they delivered a lot of moths. They caught sparrows and other songbirds. And when the chicks were getting bigger and started to really go through their growth spurt and really demand a lot of food, their father became a super big game hunter, hunting chipmunks in the middle of the day. So if you had asked me, do screech owls hunt at 11 a.m. and noon? I would say no, they're nocturnal. Do they kill chipmunks? No, because chipmunks are diurnal, and they're big. They can't kill chipmunks. Well, he was doing that. So all of these things I got to see because I could just stand there. Now, this was the year 2020. All of my travel, just like all of us, completely erased. Clear calendar, but a miraculous coincidence. I had these owls. I would watch them for about 5 hours a day. I'd get up about an hour before dawn. I'd go find them. I'd see what they were doing. I would do the same thing at sunset and follow them into total darkness until I couldn't follow them anymore. So again, the tremendous privilege of seeing them. Then at some point, the young ones have to come out. That's Alfie on the left and one of the fledglings on the right there. And they don't have a choice. They're not like our kids. They can't decide to hang around a few extra years. The failure to launch is really failure. And all of them needed to come out. It's either fly or die at this point. It's not a very peaceful world at first, especially for a young owl that doesn't fly very well. They were immediately beset by blue jays and mockingbirds who were attacking them. This particular blue jay and this particular first fledger, the jay was relentless, knocked that young one to the ground 4 different times. I kept being sure that the young one was dead because it just would plummet like an apple. It didn't know how to fly yet. But another strange thing that you would never suspect, they walked to the nearest tree and just climbed straight up the trunk. So they came out, so we had Alfie, we had +1, and then all the chicks were out, and I said to my wife, you know, I really would like to name them all, tell them apart, but I can't tell them apart. She said, well, just call them the Who. So that's who we had. Alfie +1 and the Who. Alfie was a fantastic mother, and you probably have all heard that the young ones are all in competition, and there's never enough food for all of them, and one of them will fall behind and get weak and eventually die. This is exactly the opposite of what we saw. What we saw was that by dawn, because they'd been fed during the night, by dawn they were so stuffed that Alfie would sometimes have to chase them around. The young ones just were like, get away from me. And Alfie was like, but you have to eat your peas. And she would go to them and make sure that everybody had an opportunity to eat. Now, this is a very short video and it has some sound. The sound is subtle and you need to be really quiet, but what I'm going to show you that I hope this works because it worked when we tried it, is that if you're a birder and you read in a field guide about the sounds that screech owls make. They make a trill and they make a whinny. You will never hear, or you will never read in a field guide, and you will never hear if you press a thing on a website about their sound, you will never hear the sound you're about to hear, because this sound is a sound of intimacy. It is not something that you would hear if you're a birder. It's not something that's in a field guide. It's a sound of intimacy, and it is the way that owls say, that screech owls say, "I love you."
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, it's nice, right? Oh yeah.
Now, you might think that's adorable, and it is, but there's another thing about that, and that is that birds diverged from the lineage that led to mammals 300 million years ago. Our nervous systems have been on a separate parallel track for 300 million years, and yet she could come looking for me, and I could come looking for her, and we would both enjoy the pleasure of that contact. And I think that's really incredible and really surprising. But then I thought, why is it surprising? It's been this way since before anything like a human was on this planet. This is the way they've been. This is the way it's been. They are relational beings. Why am I surprised? I raised homing pigeons when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I trained hawks when I was an adolescent. I studied seabirds for 15 years. Of all the people who shouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised that this owl was so relational, and this was revealed to me because she was tame and she knew who I was, and we were part of each other's life. So why don't we know this? Why are we so estranged from the world? And this raised a big question for me. Is our disconnect part of our nature, or are we taught our disconnect? This philosopher had a piece in the New York Times a few years ago, and he wrote that our devaluation and disconnect from nature is the founding idea of Western thought, and its worst idea, because it means that we owe nature nothing. We can pollute it because it has no value. So it was going on 3 summers ago now, my daughter called me in the middle of the afternoon. She said, "I think our house is on fire. There's a lot of smoke outside my window." And I said, "Listen, I have good news. The house is not on fire. Canada is on fire." When the good news is that Canada is on fire, something is very, very, very out of balance. Trees are the fastest and best way to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but we are letting trees burn. We're letting everything dry up and get hotter. And that's because we devalue the world. We can take everything from it with no responsibility. These are the values that we are taught as reflected in the economy that we have, the financial economy we have. It could be totally different. It just reflects the values that we are taught. It could value the world. A tree could have value alive. A fish could have value alive. Clean water could have value as it is. But we really don't care. We farm in the most aggressive way possible. We fish in the most aggressive way possible. And as a result, wildlife populations in aggregate in the world are down by about 70% since the first Earth Day, since we were in high school. And birds have declined by about 1/3. So what would it look like to actually love the world instead? Well, it's not technology, it's a revolution in values. That probably sounds silly to you. All technologies serve the values that send them, and all actual human progress has rested on moral revolutions. Now, I know this is a little heavy, so we need a little levity here. So the last pope thought that this was a matter of religious consequence. I wrote an article with the writer Paul Greenberg talking about making Earth Day a religious holiday, not to worship the Earth, but because it needs our reverence. It deserves our reverence because it's a miracle. Or reconnecting can be a very literal endeavor, connecting habitats so animals can move, so they don't get all smashed on the road, so they can go under a railway instead of being killed. And it can work at any scale. You just have to know a little, and you just have to want to do it. You can let crabs go to where crabs need to go to spawn. So what should we do on Monday morning? Stop being transactional beings only, stop being just consumers, and focus on being relational. Whatever you're doing or building, think about the whole world in mind. We can farm differently. We can farm vertically. No pesticides, a lot less water. It works. You just have to want to do these things. So my dream is to connect living abundance and human dignity with all of life on Earth in everything that we think about. And that's partly because a little screech owl that we rescued and raised taught me that even owls have a word for love. Thank you very much for your attention and your patience. I should tell you, Alfie is on 5 eggs right now with her second husband, and she has already raised 21 wild babies.